Okay, welcome. Well, I'm Pete Kramer with Pete Kramer Media, and welcome to Lights Up, the High School Theater Podcast. We're speaking on Monday, March 23rd, 2026. At this point in the musical season, 44 musicals have come and gone, including 8 Chicagos and 2 Guys and Dollses. Two of those shows were directed by this week's guests. Christina Colangelo directed Chicago Teen Edition at Blind Brook High School. Welcome, Christina.
Hi.
And Nadia Rizzo directed Guys and Dolls at Pleasantville. Welcome, Nadia.
Hi.
So great to have you guys here to join the podcast. Now that your shows have come and gone, have you had a minute to relax?
Coming back down. Coming back down off of the high, for sure.
Definitely.
This is how Nadia relaxes. I saw her at the matinee of Guys and Dolls at Clarkstown North on Saturday with some of her kids.
That's awesome.
Supporting others. And
Theater, right?
yeah, and it was funny because Clarkstown North did the Music Man last year, so I had to go check it out. Was there some sort of universe? Was something happening? You know, we did the same show 2 years in a row, and as directors, we had never chatted, so I had to go check it out. It was great.
That's great. Chrissy, did you get to any shows this weekend?
I did not. Just took the weekend off.
That's it. You're allowed to do that after so many months in the trenches for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds. Maybe we'll start, Chrissy, with you. You are a member of what I like to call the Cranberry, Lennon, Colangelo, Dory Theatrical Syndicate, right? So well known in the Portchester, Rybrook area for creating theater for kids at Crawford Park and beyond. Talk a little bit about your background and how long you've been teaching at Blind Brook.
I can't remember my life pre-theater, so I've been doing this ever since I think I was in my first show, I was 2. And it was kind of part of the genetics. If you had any talent, they put you on stage. So I guess I was pretty good as a little kid. My grandmother was the me of Portchester High School in the 70s and early 80s. So she directed the shows there and taught English, as I do here in Rybrook. I've been here, I start my 20th year this year. So I've been here quite a while, and I'm very lucky to have such a wonderful home base. I went to Indiana University, studied theater and drama there, and I quickly figured out that I wanted to direct as opposed to perform. Oh, and of course, we have an announcement. So that was kind of my path there, and I started directing right out of college, mostly adults, and then there was an opening here at Blind Brook, and I jumped on the opportunity to work with teenagers. I think it's a really important job because you could be, fostering the talents of future directors and educators in the field, and actors and actresses and producers and directors. So I felt like that was a really great fit for me.
That's great. And Nadia, you were at Alberta's for a while before.
I was before Pleasantville. It's my 6th year at Pleasantville. I did Alberta's for 11. And before that, I actually was in Portchester doing, Christina, I believe I worked with your mom. I was over at Holy Rosary and Corpus Christi and a couple of other places floating around for a few years. My theater experience actually started in high school. So I think this is one of the reasons why I'm all here, and I love being here in the space where I'm at. I was a classically trained pianist, and then all of a sudden I'm in chorus and playing the clarinet, and then we want to audition for the spring show, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is fun. And so then my friends were like, hey, let's go to a community theater. Great. So here I am, like checking off, hey, can you play the piano? Can you sight read? Can you transpose? And I'm like, okay, we can do this. And I walked in auditioning for a role in Godspell in a community theater when I was 16 and walked out a musical director. And that's how I made it to the director side of theater. The rest is history.
Amazing. That's amazing. Community theater to me, oh my God. It's how I met my wife at the Chappaqua Drama Group. And I was looking back, there used to be this thing called Theater Inform. It was a thing in Westchester. It was a monthly newsletter actually on paper that got mailed to your house back in the 90s. And it was like this thick, and it had all the different shows you could go to audition for. Every town had a theater. And they all rehearsed in their high schools, and that's so far gone now. It's not even a thing. Community theater is it's really it's a rarity. There's actually a couple more in Rockland, I think, than there are in Westchester almost at this point. You got Antrim and Elmwood and Nyack and some great things. But this community theaters, to me, it's such a natural progression from high school to keeping your hand in it in the summer, like doing a summer stock sort of thing, like a summer show. And wow. Well, those are two great stories. Those are two great ways to get where you got today, and being able to inspire the kids. So, like as I think I said before to you that usually what I like to do with the podcast is come away with some actionable thing, something that people can take away from this and say, well, Nadia and Chrissy said I have to, so I must. And I think this is going to be more reflective of the people, the kids you've met along your way, 20 years, 17 years, people, because you've affected them, no doubt. But they've also done something to you. They've also changed the way you look at the world, or however. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let's go there. Let's talk a little bit about. Let's talk, maybe, ladies, first about what you hope that they will get from the experience, and then we can go into stories that you'd like to share about kids who've made an impact on you. So Nadia, why don't we start with you and talk a little bit about when you have a student show up for a rehearsal at Pleasantville. What do you hope they get from that time, from freshman year to senior year?
There's so many things in that rehearsal within every show. I think there's lessons to be learned and taught on both of our ends, from me to student and from student to the creative team. Versatility is a big one for me. And my students will say that through and through. We stress that anything can and will happen, and we should be prepared for it. I think the life skills matter of it is really big for me. I'm here, we're here to help students see what they cannot see or have not seen yet. And that's a big one for me too. I think, we are more than part-time cheerleaders, and the ins and outs of high school can be tough. And we are there at the end of a long day, or perhaps, an even longer day, to kind of teach, inspire, and create together. I mean, it's not just us creating and it's not just them creating. We have to have that working relationship. So I kind of try to stress that. And of course, a number of factors can, change what that means from day to day. But I just kind of focus, on having fun, learning something, and liking what you're doing. Let's make sure that, when we're staging something, for example, let's make sure that it's not just my vision. Let's make sure that you tell me, what do you think the character should do? I have these conversations with my students all the time. Well, what would your character do? What would you do? And how is that different? And why is that different? And which one might make the most sense here in this situation?
Oh, that's great. I love that. And Chrissy, what do you think? What's your take on what you want your kids to get out of the process?
My biggest thing is trust, and trusting each other and trusting themselves and trusting the creative team to know what the best decision is for the whole group, and to see beyond just themselves, and to really think of it as a, collaborative process. Like Nadia said about, it's not just my vision for what I think the show should be. I really want them to trust their instincts, and to walk away with an ability to make decisions and feel comfortable on their own, and feel like they were heard and they were important in the process.
Hmm.
Yeah, so on my audition forums, and on the cast list, trust the team, trust the process. And I make that those two sentences are in. And really, Christina, it does come down to that, right? The trust. There's so much trust because we are building a puzzle blindly, and we see the pieces, but we're not really sure. We don't have the box to look at to see, like, hey, how's this going to work? And the pieces are changing every day. So trust the team, trust the process.
You both just did musicals that really are, they require a little bit of a learning curve, don't they? Guys and Dolls kids don't even if they're on DraftKings and they shouldn't be, even if they're betting, they don't really know about odds. They don't know what someone fade me means. They don't know all the lingo behind guys and dolls. Chrissy, for Chicago, forget the jazz hands. That's a whole other thing. But you've got the lingo of the criminal justice system and how things work and all that stuff was probably a learning curve for a lot of kids too, right?
And fortunately, I teach 11th grade English, and in my 11th grade classes, we're actually doing The Great Gatsby right now. So we did this whole like web quest about like bootleggers and all these terms that they came across then in Chicago, and they were like, "Oh, so this was during Prohibition." I'm like, "Yes, it was," and this is why this was such a, scandalous things happening during the 1920s. So I really feel like it was a nice connection for them. But I always think that everything I ever learned about history, I learned from musical theater, and I can connect so many historical events to musicals that I have either directed or been in, and really draw upon that knowledge to make it a little more accessible. And I really feel like that's an opportunity that we get to teach beyond just the songs and dances and blocking, and really about the people during the certain time periods. I feel like that's something that in a lot of history classes is kind of skipped over, and this is really the human piece of the history of our country.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nadia, Chrissy this year in the fall directed 12 Angry Jurors, and then she went to Chicago. So she had her criminal justice year, and she's the daughter of a judge. She's the daughter of a judge. So it was like, forget it.
So that's how you planned your season this year.
Huh? I did. I try to. I don't always get it that way, but I try to do thematic, at least connections between the pieces I'm doing.
Excellent.
That's great. So you guys sound very mature. You sound like you've got all these years of wisdom that you've just you've got it. How'd you get there? How did you? There must have been bumps along the way where there were times where you go home and you say to Mr. Beadle and Mr. Rizzo, you say, "What the hell am I doing? Why can't I get through to this kid? Why does he insist on putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable? And why can't I get him to do what I want? Why doesn't he have a remote control? Right? Why doesn't that kid have a remote control? None of them do. I have 4 kids. None of them had a remote control. How do you get so mature, ladies? How did you get where you got? What did it take to get you there?
Grit, hard work, your own type of organization, and just the ability to get up and try again that next day. Some of these days are hard. I mean, they're going to be. They are for everyone, including our kids. So the demands of, I think, a high school theater director have changed. I think, Christina, you would probably agree. After 20 years, I think it continues to change. But I would say even within the past 10, they've changed. I feel like they've changed dramatically for this or that. And there's just more. There's more to do. There's more to think about. And there's more research to be done than ever before. And we have more technology. We have the research at our fingertips, but we have more research to do than ever before. So it just keeps going. The kids keep you going until they don't keep you going, and then you find your whys and you find your reasons, and you, at the end of the day, you throw it up to the theater gods. And it has worked out every single time when we didn't think it'd work out. And we all know that those moments, those scenes, those numbers that have caused us the greatest deal of stress in one moment or one day can be some of our favorite moments from the productions. That's the way it is. That's the theater universe.
I find that remaining humble has kind of kept me on the path, because there's always going to be a different challenge that's going to present itself, and I have to just admit that I don't know everything, and I will do whatever I can to find the answer to it, but not being afraid to say, you know what, that's a great question. I don't know. And I am going to help you figure it out. Or even if it's working with a kid that's struggling in school or struggling outside of school, is being able to, do everything I can, and then knowing when I can't and getting the help from the people that surround me.
That's great. Can you talk a little bit about, uh, you don't have to name names, but you can if you'd like to. I mean, I think last year, Nadia, I remember talking to you about Jamal Fields Green,
Mhm.
who was your kid from Albertus, who went on to be in Hamilton and Chicago and on Broadway, and now is he still in London on the West End
So he
doing
wrapped up.
MJ?
He wrapped up MJ, I believe, late last month as
Yeah,
MJ, and he's living his life. And I think he's doing a lot of his own music stuff. He's married. He's doing a show with his wife. He's producing. He's living. And isn't that what we want for all of our students? And going back, Jamal landed in Music Theory 1. This is how it started. And there was a couple of students, and they wanted to make beats. That was it. So we would have drumming. We just go, oh, you're drumming today. They go over to the drums and just start playing. And then we started, the conversation went to different musical things. And then all of a sudden, we were watching Run and Tell That, and we were watching, Hairspray, and we did Hairspray that year. And he ended up being Seaweed, and all of his friends were in it. They tell me that it was going to be a joke. I still keep in touch with Jamal, and I have heard over the years that it was a joke that they were going to
that's what he
do
told
it.
me.
Yeah,
He said they were going to audition, get the
yeah,
parts, and then not
and then
show up.
no, jokes on them. They ended up all of them like say, going into the advanced choir, and we had a blast. Like that whole group was 20, gosh, I don't know, 2012, 2013, 2014, like all in there. I know he graduated in 14.
Yeah.
So all in there. It was a blast. It always is, but it was real special because they
So
were
what
all
did
on the football team. That's the other
they were
thing.
all, oh my
That
God.
the chapter in the book that says football team goes to chorus, goes to show that actually happened. It can happen, folks. I promise it did. Yeah.
And the great
Actually,
thing about
on that
casting,
on that
yeah,
note, I was looking for some boys to be in the Roxy number in Chicago this year, and I teach 10th and 11th and this year 12th grade, so I've had a lot of kids multiple years. So I just thought, I think I'm going to just send out an email to a bunch of past students and see if they'd be interested in being in one number in the show. And I did, and I got like 8 kids, 8 boys that were, not theater kids, that were our athletes by nature, that came in and did the one number, and they were fantastic, and they loved it. Like they had so much fun. They're still talking about it. They were the last people out of here on Saturday night because they were asking all these questions about theater and about like how do you cast shows and what does it look like when you're picking a show. Great questions, smart kids. And I think they were surprised that they really enjoyed the process. And I really think it made it much more of a, you know, different people came to see the show than necessarily would have before. And they came thinking that they were going to be laughing at their friends on stage, and they left thinking, wow, they really did a great job.
mm,
So I thought that with Nadia, I think it is possible. You just have to make an effort to try to reach a broader audience.
It happens every day, morning, noon, or night. The opportunity presents itself. You got to take it. If I hear a kid singing in the hallway, I will go out and look. I will go see what's happening. Are you joining chorus? Why aren't you in chorus? You have to. I mean, that's just what we're in tune to. I want to do that. I don't have to do that. I want to do that because the next, people working on the stage, off the stage, they're walking the hallways. And yes, we have this community. We have this great community, but we have people who have not figured that out yet. So it's just as important to kind of reach them. And I will go down the hall. I will find them and I will bring them in, and I just think it's so important.
well, and that's the beauty of what I love about that is, and at the risk of of actually teaching something this week, which we weren't supposed to do, asking is good. Asking is good, but also keeping the ear open and shopping the halls for kids who might want to come out is huge. It must be great for somebody to. I think you had said something about Jamal hitting the copy machine, or like there's something like you were seeing him at the copy machine, and you were like, it must be great for a student to hear, I see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself. Why don't you come and give it a shot?
And I try to do that with as many students as possible. Obviously, I want the moment to be organic. I don't want to plan the moment. But we were rehearsing in the library, and he was the last one left after rehearsals. He was making something by the copy machine. And I told him, I said, when you win your Tony, when you're on Broadway, just be sure to keep in touch. And he laughed. He was singing "A Change Is Gonna Come" by Sam Cooke. And I had already seen it. Yeah, that was when he was a sophomore. So we're talking, yeah, that was Hairspray year, 2011, 2012. And we see that it's not for just people who are going to make it on Broadway. I mean, it's, I have other students. I have a student who sent me a picture of the Minnie Mouse Thanksgiving Day, Macy's Thanksgiving Day balloon. I said, hey, nice to hear from you. That's kind of a random picture. And he said, Mrs. Rizzo, I helped make that. And I'm like, I did not expect it to go there, but wow. Let you know, he was in the crew at Albertus, a little younger than Jamal, but now he's working and building Macy's balloons. What a dream job.
Oh, that's awesome.
When I used to teach ninth grade, I would hear kids like give a speech in class, and I'd be like, you have really nice speaking voice. Do you maybe want to audition for the show? And a lot of times they were so surprised, like you just said about like, wow, you see something in me that I didn't necessarily see. I had a couple of kids that I actually like called their parents and was like, I think that they may enjoy this. Would you encourage them to maybe come to the audition? And a lot of them did and showed up and wound up being leaders in the theater program. So I feel like we have eyes for things that they don't see themselves. And it's important that when we do see a kid that could possibly work backstage, has a talent in lighting or sound or music production, that you approach them, because they may not have even thought of it themselves.
Right.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but you need bodies too. You need to fill out that stage, right? And part of that is having an eye for talent or the possibility of talent. It may not work out every time. I don't imagine it works out every single time, but there are kids who I remember from Blind Brook shows who were just like Sammy Landino, who was like the lead. He was like he sneezed and he got the lead. He was just amazing. He did everything great, and he went to law school. He went to Yale, right? And
he went to Yale and then Harvard. He's at Harvard Law now.
Yeah, so as one does, right? So I mean, but he could not have done that if he hadn't played Sky Masterson, right? He was Sky Masterson.
Yes, he was.
but those kids and your teen angel showstopper.
Yep. Lee Price.
Lee Price, who went on tour and did some great stuff. And I mean, those kids have that moment to. Some kids are going to go there anyway. Some kids are just theater kids with a capital T and a capital K, and they're going to be there. But there must be. Do you guys recall a story of a guy? I mean, I think Jamal is to a certain extent that, but I think the diamond in the rough was there. Were the kids who really surprised you by stepping out of their comfort zone and stepping out into that spotlight?
Yeah, I mean, over the years there are so many. It's hard to think of just one. But when you see someone who's shy or reserved, and you see the potential in the character, or the development of the character, and then it's not happening, and then they finally something clicks. I think that happened this year. We had seen it as a creative team and seen it, and we just were not. It was just, we're like, all right, when's it going to happen? Like we had no doubt it would happen. We just didn't know when the firework would boom. And it was later than we would have maybe chosen, but we don't get to choose those things, right? Because it has to happen again organically. We can't make things happen. We just knew it was there, and we had to keep trying to pull that out, and ultimately I believe that we did.
Yeah, that's what the boy who played nicely for you this year was just wild. I mean, freshman, right? And he just kind of stepped out.
I didn't know him until September. He joined chorus. He's a talented percussionist as well. And I will say that his energy is very similar to Nicely. As far as he was really, it's life imitating art, right? Art imitating life. Which one is it? But yeah, he did an exceptional job. And when the students can get everyone else riled up, like that number is electric, and that number is not going to be electric unless you're nicely is electric, and kind of having an out of body experience, right?
Right.
And I think that's what happened on stage. I mean, I was I was at the edge of my seat because I didn't know he would fall. He fell to the floor when, the boat drowned, and he's on. And it was just something a little bit different would happen every night. But it was inspiring to watch because the growth just kept happening.
That's great. Otherwise, they all just sit down, and then that's no fun.
Rocking.
You don't want them to sit down during sit down. You're rocking the boat. You want them up on their feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Chrissy, I have to ask, what is it like to direct your daughter? Sammy was in your show this
Yeah.
year. What was that like?
It was amazing. I've been trying very hard to give her space in school, and not be the overbearing mom in the hallways and stuff like that. But she is just so wonderful to direct, and like she inspires me to want to be better, because I want to be better, not only for all the other kids, but for her as well, because I know that this is something that she aspires to do in her life. So I also wanted her to see me in my space. I wanted her to be able to be proud of the fact that I'm her mom, and to see why I have such strong connections with the kids I've had such strong connections with for the past 20 years. So I wanted to kind of continue my, the vibe that I like to provide in the theater, but I was especially wanting to like have her hop on board. I wanted her to really understand what it was all about, and she wasn't just doing it because it was me and because she wants to. But it was really great. It was nice to see her working with the creative team and working with the cast who I, adore, and the students I love, and the way that they all embrace the younger kids. They always have, I think is really special. And the fact that they respect each other and really, wanted to make them all feel welcome. And it was nice to see that coming about, especially with my daughter.
That's great. If you're just joining us, this week's guests are Christina Colangelo from Brook High School in Rye Brook, New York, and Nadia Rizzo from Pleasantville High School, and two great programs with a great history in Westchester County that these ladies have continued and built upon. Talking about younger actors coming in, and that continuum, Nadia, at Pleasantville, you've got that in spades. You cast kids like your River City last year. You're tired of hearing me say this, that it was larger than most Iowa cities, because the stage was full, and you built out to the sides, and you had, you had the Wells Fargo wagon come down the middle of the aisle. It was huge and massive, and little kids involved from the get go. That's unique. I think some middle schools will bring kids in, but you look for opportunities to do that, don't you?
Yeah, our youngest was in third grade last year. Now, third grade and sixth grade are very different. We had almost a dozen students in grades 3 through 6 last year, and it certainly adds a layer to the entire production. If it's going to help us tell the story, I am a big believer in telling a story authentically. So if there are supposed to be children, I want them played by children, right? I don't see the telling the story authentically if there's a 10-year-old and it's played by a 16-year-old. Now, some 16-year-olds may look young, but I don't know. I just go for that authenticity if at all I can attain that. And we're really lucky to have a great program at Pleasantville throughout the 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high, that fosters that, and that places importance and support on that, because not all places do that. And it really is about all those small moments of all of the teachers in elementary and middle, and all of the music teachers and all of the community support and everything that's going on is why we're able to kind of, work with that. Was it a challenge of a different nature at some days? Sure. Because you're communicating with like a whole nother team here.
Right.
And, then communicating with their parents, which is different than the way you might communicate with your parents and guardians of high school students. But it proved to be an experience. And fun fact, the middle school just did Legally Blonde. I went over and caught little of their dress rehearsal last week. And the kids that were in Music Man, they've all adapted their own little things to do before the show based on what they saw last year at the high school. And
Uh-oh.
they made sure to tell the high schoolers, send Mrs. Rizzo a picture, show her this video, let her know we're doing it here. So I thought that was so sweet.
Oh,
That is sweet.
that's great. That's funny. That's great. The the idea of students starting where they start and getting where they get is really, that whole journey is really so important. And I've seen kids on both of your stages step into that next realm. You could tell them. I think if the three of us went to a production, we did this the other day, Nadia. We're sitting there watching. We're like, and like, oh my God, goosebumps! I just got goosebumps. That girl who sang gave me goosebumps, and I just leaned over and I just went like that. And Nadia has said, yeah, same thing. It's you can tell. You can tell. I used to do this thing where I would say, I would name it a one to watch. This kid is one to watch. Like, and invariably 3 years later, the kid is the star. And it's not because I had anything magical. It's just that they used to say about Ingrid Bergman, didn't they say about Ingrid Bergman? Lighting designers loved her because her cheeks reflected more light than any other star. Like it was, they didn't need to, they could light her any way they wanted, but she reflected more light than anybody else. So you're going to notice her. If you have 10 Swedes, she's the one you're picking, right? So it's and that's the way it is with kids. You can kind of tell the ones that have that spark, can't you?
Yeah, and I think choosing the right show is at the heart of it with your team, because you can have all the kids to do Chicago or Guys and Dolls, and if you did something different, it wouldn't have turned out the same. You have
Hmm.
when I did South Pacific, I think I waited 9 years to then be able to have the cast for South Pacific. And the kids might always think, such a misconception is, oh, well, you do what you want. We're doing what you want to do. And I'm like, whoa, I think we have it all wrong, because with the creative team, you know, at the heart of it is making all of our students on and off the stage, and all of our crews and on stage, and our actors, singers, and dancers, we want them all to shine. And no show is perfect, right? So when we did Footloose, that's great, all this, but guess what? There wasn't a trumpet part, right? So the kid who was a senior who played the trumpet and maybe was going to go into it, there's no trumpet in Footloose. So not every show is going to check all of those boxes. You've got so many boxes, and at the heart of it is our kids. I think you would probably agree, Christina.
Yes.
And it's the show choice is so important. Like, who do we have, and what story can we tell the best this year only, right?
Yeah, and I feel like we, you know, kind of zoom out when picking a show and think about it from a wider perspective in terms of like, can I cast the secondary parts? Can I cast? It's not always about can you cast the leads. It's do you have the players to fill the stage management position and the assistant director and the ensemble? Are they dancers? Are they not dancers? So I feel like it's a much bigger picture when picking a show than just can I cast the leads? Because I think at every high school you can always cast the leads. I don't think that that's ever the issue. I think it's you always have like multiple choices for the leads. It's the other players that are equally important that need to be filled, and sometimes those roles are more important than being able to cast the leads.
And we want all
Because
of our
they,
sorry to have
yeah,
that
go ahead.
experience. Like, I want them to be able to build something or light something or do something great with the lobby or costumes. I mean, it's their experience too. It's those kids, and there are leaders in all of those places that we want to create with and for.
I had a senior
Yeah.
this year, first time in a really long time that is going into lighting design in college. And so when I was picking the show, part of it was what would be a really cool show for him to be able to be the lighting designer his senior year. And I
Oh, that's
just,
great.
aside from all the other pieces, that was kind of a bonus was that there'd be a 17-year-old kid who is taking the reins and making all the creative lighting decisions for Chicago, which really the lighting is the technical star of that show. So
Yes.
that was really cool.
That's great. One of the other things with both of your shows this year, dance is Fosse and all that. and in Guys and Dolls, there's plenty of dance as well. What's the impact of like youth theaters and dance troupes raising that bar for you? There must be kids who come in, freshman year who can do a little, little something, but then that growth over that period with the extra help from dance classes and that sort of stuff. Is that on your radar when you're casting, or are there stories to tell there about kids who've come up through the
I
ranks?
had actually 3 freshmen this year who had been on the NIPAC dance team from the time they were little kids until very recently. And they just have a different comfort on the stage with dance training, especially in Chicago. And I, wanted the opportunity to give them some features, even if they weren't going to be one of the leads, that they would have, the opportunity to showcase their skills in other ways. So definitely, I feel like the kids that do have some dance training have a different comfort on the stage with their bodies, especially with their movement.
It's like
Yeah.
coming in at a different angle. And I found that there's been a lot of conflicts between like competitions and like shows in March. March has always been full of conflicts, but by senior year, I did have an instance this year where I had a student who was not able to do the show until this year and made the commitment to say, hey, I really want to do this. I want to be in it. She was the student who did the aerial in the sewer.
Oh, right,
Age-
right, right.
and like that, I wanted that. That was wonderful for her. To have that experience. And our dance captains as well. We have a great choreographer, Jessica Rizzo Stafford, no relation. Want to make that real clear.
Really?
Yeah, total universe. Absolutely not. But yeah, we work really well together. And she just, and that's the thing, putting the people in the places. She brings out something in our kids. And, she's the cool aunt that comes to visit twice a week during show season. And there's a lot of respect and a lot of trust. And then you've got students. I had Dominic, actually, he's a junior this year, and Pete, I think you referred to him as like dancer guy or something. I don't know. I know you spoke with him at some point. And when
Uh-huh.
he transferred to Pleasantville his freshman year, came right in my door and said, I like to dance, I like to sing. I'm ready to do the musicals.
Oh,
Okay.
that's awesome.
It's really simple. All right, great. And then, the rest, and, they live their life on that stage, and that's what we want. We want to see kids living their best lives and living in the moment and having it affect not only themselves and their peers, but a fresh audience every night.
And that must make you feel, I mean, the reward of all those hours, and you can now sit back and say, when you're not going to see a musical to relax on the weekend, you can go back, you can go and say, Dominic, I did right by Dominic. I gave him that shot, and he taught me to trust him, that he could rise to it and do it, just the same way those freshman girls taught you, Chrissy, to trust them, that they knew their bodies and could give you jazz hands when you needed jazz hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
On
that's
the what I have learned from my students, if I can kind of segue into that, I really wanted to make a point that teenagers are capable of anything. They, when given the opportunity and the ownership of something that they feel passionately about, they can do anything. They can build sets, they can design cover art, they can do lighting. Never have I ever given a student a responsibility that they let me down. And I feel like that's something that teenagers have a bad rap. We see all this stuff all over social media and on TV about, teenagers and what they're doing on the weekends. And I look around my everyday, and I would trust these teenagers with my life. They are capable of accomplishing such amazing things just in that like microcosm of theater. The things that you have to do in order to put on a show, the quick changes that my musical director was backstage doing, showing the kids how to get things done, and doing each other's hair and makeup and designing the hair and makeup. If you give them a task, they will accomplish it. And I feel like that's something that when I came in, I would think I was like 26 when I started here. And I was a little hesitant to trust that they would get it done. And I've learned over the years that I 100% believe that they will do anything that they set their mind to.
Yeah, I would agree. We did not have a lot of resources at Albertus, I will say, and it was but it wasn't about the resources. It's never about the resources. It's about the community and what you build. And those were some of the best years because we had each other. And that's all we needed. And whether we had to put the cheerleading mats up in the hallway so that we could, have dressing rooms and make sure they were down so they could transform into a hallway the next year, or rehearse in a library until 1 week before the show with tape on the floor. Their
Right.
resilience. And I think that's what there's resilience there. And once their passion, once the fire has been lit, we're doing this and nothing's taking us down. And that's the grit. That's what I think what we want our students to have for life, because it isn't easy, folks, but theater can teach us, so much. And one thing I wanted to add, besides the trust and all the things we've talked about it, don't take yourself too seriously. I think as a director, as a creative, any part, like no one should take themselves too seriously. Sometimes we just have to like step back and be like, all right, like we need to think something different, or what do you think about it? And then the other thing, two things. Mother Nature is always cast in your show. Mother Nature is in your show every year, and she has a different motive every year. And when you think you figured it out, no, she's back. So there's that. And I think there was one student, I have to shout him out, from Albertus. He was a builder, John Nemchek. He was a twin. Great, team of builders and crew. And he would always, when he would sense I was stressing out, he would tell me how many hours there were until the show. But you know what? Now you think that might stress you out, but when I was like, oh, Miss Rizzo, we have 898 hours. And I'm like, okay, like we have time. That always gave me a sense of, like it's going to be okay. We always have more time than you think, truthfully.
That's great. I love that. I love that kid. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Anything else you guys would like to say about the process, about I think Chrissy, you said teenagers could do anything. I think theater kids can do anything, but I'm just going to tweak that a little bit.
They sure can.
No,
I think there was a from maybe it was the Jimmys last year. I'm going to say I think it was was it Ben Platt that gave the speech, and it was like, if you want to hire somebody, hire a theater kid. They know how to make things happen on no money. They know how to learn lines and give presentations in 20 minutes. And I do feel like that. I feel like theater kids have every possible talent to be able to be successful in life. And I have no doubt that every single one of these kids, the ones that they have been successful over the course of my career, and they will continue to be. And they all take different paths, and they all get there at their own pace. But these kids they have all the necessary skills, and like Nadia was talking about, the grit to be able to get things done and to see things to fruition and to follow through on their passions. And that's something that's always made me proud, is watching them. And the majority of my kids don't go on to careers in theater. A lot of them have gone on to backstage and production jobs, but most of them wind up as lawyers and teachers and in business. But I know that the skills that they learned as part of being in a musical or a drama helped them to become as successful as they are.
And to not give up when the going gets tough, because the going will be tough. Just ask any theater kid on the Wednesday out of a 3. We're going to 3 to 10s, and we are on that Wednesday. And things are not looking like they need to yet. But, and it was not giving up. You just triggered something. So because we had the 2 snow days and then the delay, that whole Mother Nature, there she is. We were supposed to have teasers this year, but we canceled them because how are we going to find time to rehearse a couple of extra teasers when we got to get the show together? We ended up having the full day that we would have had this teasers, and then a 3 to 10, a dress rehearsal. So we spent, yeah, that sounds horrible. I understand that doesn't sound too fun, but I had no voice. I was like laryngitis at the end, but, and it's not because I yell, it's because we're talking so much during show season. But, at the end, and I'm in my closing kind of thing, I said, look at us smiling at the end of a 14-hour day together. We must be doing something right. If at 14 hours we're exhausted and we're beat down, but there's still a laugh to be had. So, and there it is. There's the resilience and the grit.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much, ladies. This was great conversation. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Lights Up podcast is a production of Pete Kramer Media, LLC. You can check out all kinds of theater kid merchandise. We've got hats, we've got headbands, we've got keychains, and even temporary tattoos that if you put enough of them on, I think they become permanent. That's at PeteKramerMedia.com. And all of the proceeds go into this whole labor of love, the podcast and all the coverage. So do check out PeteKramerMedia.com. I think only 19 more shows to go, ladies, and then we're on to Pedro's open mic on May 16th. Looking forward to that. That should be a lot of fun. Thank you so much. It was great to have you, Nadia Rizzo and Christina Colangelo, on Lights Up, the high school theater podcast this week. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, Pete.
That's better.